Students of medieval history at Lewis Clark State College, congratulations. You made it to the end of the class, right? I wanted to just say a few things here at the end of the course. Uh, First off, grades. When will I have the final grades are due? I gotta look at my calendar. I think final grades are due by May 12th or something. Graduation is May 9th. Um, Final grades will be submitted before May 9th. In terms of your essays themselves, um, yeah, that's a great question. I wish I could tell you that they're going to be graded by the end of the day tomorrow or whatever. I got a bunch of essays to deal with. Realistically, we're looking at something like probably a week. Um, so give me a week on things as I get into grading these things. They're going to take me a little bit of time. Next, I really appreciate your efforts in this class. I know that some of y'all have put forth a ton of effort towards learning some medieval history. And I can see that through the discussion boards and the level of detail you guys went through some of the videos. I can see that with your some of the books that you chose. Some of y'all, did book reviews on books that were not very easy, and just some of y'all's presentations were just outstanding. So I really appreciate the effort that you've put into this class in terms of making this class successful. And from my point of view, this class has been very successful. I also really appreciate your patience. And the deal is this: taking a course, even if you've taught it before, and I've taught this medieval history course before in a couple of different formats, but never 100% online. And behind the scenes, I ran into a few challenges along the way, and nobody freaked out. So I really appreciate the patience that you guys have had. You've just been doing your work while I tried to figure out how to get things to work, whether it was trying to figure out how to get the technology to work or realizing that one of the things that I do in my face-to-face classes just wasn't going to work on a discussion board. I appreciate y'all's efforts to go along with that, or your patience with that. And then this gets me to your willingness, I suppose. I appreciate your willingness. And what I mean by that is that this class, from my point of view, has been fairly low maintenance. Um, when you didn't have your, immediate project, up for the week, I knew it wasn't up. I was working on it. And I wasn't receiving multiple emails letting me know that the thing I was working on wasn't up yet. You guys just went about your business. You worked on your final projects. And I really appreciate your willingness to engage on that front. And it encourages me to do this again, because here's the deal with some of these kinds of classes. In an ideal world, it's all put together nice and neat before any student ever comes in the virtual door on the first day of class. However, and some of y'all who are thinking about going into teaching are going to discover this. However, in the real world, in the practical world, there's time limitations. But there's also some things that you just don't know until you try it out with some people. And so you can game plan all you want, but until you get an idea of who's on your team and what they can do, I don't know if you should game plan for the entire season. Game plan for a couple of weeks and see what you got. And you guys were really great about this, and it encourages me to think about putting some additional courses online. Um, so, thank you. SCEs, if you guys want to fill those out, that would be awesome. The fill in the dots, strongly agree, strongly disagree, that kind of stuff. That's useful for admin folks who kind of count that stuff up. For me, it's not as useful. What's really useful for me is I really liked doing these kinds of activities, and I'd like for us to do more. I wasn't so crazy about this other activity. I'd like for us to do less. So that kind of thing gives me concrete ideas about how to make the class better for the future. And then just as, I suppose a final word here, I encourage you guys to keep learning history. And remember that most education, probably the most important education, is self-education, right? Your mission is to teach yourself whatever it is you think you need to know for the rest of your life. And in this particular case, we've been using medieval history, but you guys have been learning two things, which is pretty key to the way I approach history. On the one hand, you've been learning medieval history content. All right, so that's the stuff I've given you. Whatever was in the year 1000, whatever was in the graphic novel for medieval world, whatever was in the videos, content. And on the other hand, I teach historical method, the process of getting secondary sources and primary sources and putting together a presentation and figuring out what happened. Because that's something you can take with you, and you can continue to teach yourself medieval history if you've got interested in this stuff, or you can apply the method to some other area of history that either you get interested in, hey, I'd like to learn more about, the ancient world, or particularly for the folks who might be going into secondary education, you discover that, hey, I'm going to be teaching this, big unit on, China in the year 1500, and I don't know anything about it. And so I think that the system that we used in this class can be very useful for giving yourself a crash course on something that you're going to need to teach your students later. So method, I think the method is important, and that's something you can take with you and just continue to teach yourself. So, having said all that, I really appreciate you taking the class. Looking forward to getting into these papers, and I hope to see you in another history course sometime soon. Have a great summer.